We'll be in discussion with we'll be discussing the topic of gender-based violence in the country and some expectations from gender activists. After several bills have been signed into law, I'm joined by Mpiwa the Regional Advocacy Specialist of SONA Gender Justice. A very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Of course, a lot of eyes will be on President Cyril Ramaphosa's speech tonight when it comes to matters of gender-based violence and some of the efforts and bills that have been put in place. Are you seeing the fruits of those bills when it comes to people's day-to-day lives and the victims as well as accountability?
Good morning, and thank you for inviting me to join in. And certainly, yes, today's eyes, all eyes are on SONA today and on the President's speech. Particularly from our end, we would also like to see how the President continues to address the issue of gender-based violence, which continues to be a major crisis in the country. Yes, 3 bills have been passed into law, which is quite commendable because they seek to address some of the inherent gaps that have always been there when it comes to addressing the issues of gender-based violence. However, the reality is we still have not seen some of the fruits. For instance, we did have the National Strategic Plan come into existence, or the National Strategic Plan on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide came into existence in 2020, and we're seeing that some of the provisions of the NSP have not yet been realized. So, for instance, even the National Council on GBV, it still has not yet been established. There still has not been any draft legislation that addresses how this council is going to be established. And this is now 2 years on, and we still don't know or see any movement in that regard. And we know that the statistics on gender-based violence, they have not come down in any way. We still continue to see statistics, the statistics that come from the Department of Justice still show that they still, when it comes to issues of gender-based violence, when it comes to issues of sexual offenses, we see that the statistics are still increasing. So definitely, while it is good for us to have these legal instruments in place, we have not yet seen some of them translate into reality, and that is something that we would like to see.
And some NGOs are saying that they're hoping for more funding for shelters dealing with the GBV victims and really speaking to the shortages that are still there. As you make mention of one aspect of what you'd like to hear from the President, perhaps speak to the other factors that are still important when it comes to handling GBV cases and perhaps the awareness and education which is still missing. We know that it was further exacerbated by the COVID-19 situation where we heard and saw many more incidents of gender-based violence.
Yes, certainly. You are right that there's still a lot more other issues and a lot more needs that are there, particularly organizations that are on the front line of giving service provision to address gender-based violence have been struggling financially, and this has not been made any easy by the COVID-19 pandemic. And the President, I think that was in 2020 as well, when he announced a 1.6 billion that was dedicated to GBV, but we have not seen where that money has gone to, because the reality on the ground is that organizations are still struggling, and victims and survivors of gender-based violence are also still struggling to get services. Sheltering remains a major challenge in South Africa for women to be able to find refuge in the event that they are in abusive situations, or even as they seek to transition from those abusive situations to find their feet. Sheltering is still a major challenge in the country, and we are not sure where the 1.6 billion has gone to, and we are saying that more resources need to be availed for us to be able to effectively deal with this issue, because much as, like what I alluded before, it's good that we have the laws in place, but for as long as the resources that accompany these laws are not adequate, or as long as they are not sufficiently, there are not sufficient mechanisms to enable us to ensure that these laws are made a reality, then we continue to witness the high increase of gender-based violence, and we know that globally, world over, COVID-19 resulted in an increase in terms of gender-based violence and abuse against women and girls because of the nature of how we had to closed down, shut down behind closed doors. But women and girls continue to need these vital services. And we're also saying that the criminal justice system, we need to see mechanisms that strengthen the criminal justice system and the implication of laws and policies that are aiming to address GBV, because some of the events that have been happening are not instilling any confidence in the public in terms of addressing violence. For instance, we had that incident in Norwood, at Norwood Police Station, where 150 firearms disappeared. That doesn't instill confidence in the public that when it comes to issues of dealing with violence, and we know that a significant number of some of these firearms end up being used by men against women. We have seen a number of high femicide cases in our country. So we are saying that there is need to strengthen the criminal justice system and be able to retain that public confidence that is needed.
Thank you so much. Mpiwa Tsanga, Regional Advocacy Specialist at SONA Gender Justice, weighing in on some of the expectations when it comes to matters of GBV as the President will be delivering the SONA.